Tomorrow War is a new sci-fi action movie that just came out today, July 2nd. It is now streaming on Amazon Prime Video, so you guys can go check this movie out if you want to. Directed by Chris McKay. You might remember him from the Lego Batman movie and from that Nightwing movie that was supposed to come out a few years ago and never did, and yeah, I'm still shitty about that. This film stars Chris Pratt, Yvonne Strahovski, J.K. Simmons, among other people. Pretty good cast that they've cobbled together for this movie. Chris Pratt stars as a science teacher named Dan. He used to be in the military, but now he teaches biology for a living. He has a wife and a kid. All of a sudden, a portal opens up and a whole bunch of soldiers come through it, and they tell the world that 30 years in the future, the human race is fighting a war against a mysterious and dangerous alien species. They are losing that war, and so they have time traveled 30 years into the past to recruit more people, civilians and soldiers, to join the future war so that they can defeat this enemy. Chris Pratt eventually gets drafted into this war, so he and a bunch of other civilians have to go 30 years into the future to fight this enemy. And what follows is a whole bunch of explosions and shootouts and bang bang fun summer blockbuster shoot 'em up stuff that has ramifications for both the future and the past. I can tell this movie's probably gonna be divisive as hell. If you look at critics and their reviews for this movie already, it does seem like it's very polarizing, split right down the middle. Some people like it, some people hate it. A lot of it is because of the two different sides of the fence that this movie sits on. See, on one hand, you have this big, huge, fun summer blockbuster movie that feels like it was meant to be seen in theaters. This is one of those crowd-pleasing type of summer movies that feels like you should be sitting in a theater with a bunch of friends, eating popcorn, nachos, or whatever, and enjoying a fun time. Then on the other hand, when you look at how it was thrown together and some of the storytelling, some of the flaws inherent in the movie, it does feel like a movie that was probably better suited for streaming. It feels like something that you would just get bored on a Friday or Saturday night and just pop this movie in and be like, oh shit, I found an underrated gem. First of all, I do want to commend the performances in the movie. Not that anybody was great, but everybody did a pretty decent job overall. I'd probably say the strongest performer in the movie is Yvonne Strahovski. She plays a soldier that Dan interacts with in the future. She definitely carries a lot of the emotional scenes in the movie. Like, a lot of the emoting comes from her. Chris Pratt, you know, he's old reliable at this point. You know, a lot of people look at him as a very likable actor. He does his job for the most part, although I do think they kind of held back some of the charisma that he could have flashed in this movie. You can definitely see that this movie has a lot of different other movies that are fitting within its DNA. You see bits and pieces of Independence Day in this movie. You can see bits and pieces of Aliens, especially when you look at the creatures and how they operate. And then you can also look at this movie and see bits and pieces of Edge of Tomorrow. And in terms of action, this movie definitely has it. This movie has incredibly well-filmed action sequences, a whole bunch of really intense shootouts, and a whole bunch of crazy monster mayhem going on. It does help that the musical score is there to like build up your adrenaline, you know? It feels like one of those pulse racing, you know, heart pounding type of musical scores. Very exciting and very bombastic, and I feel like that works for a movie like this. What you do in the future and whether or not you should be invested in saving a future that maybe hasn't happened yet, maybe will or won't happen or whatever. The movie doesn't really spend too much time dealing with heavy questions like that. If you just want to sit back and enjoy a fun, kick-ass sci-fi action movie, I definitely think you could do worse than the Tomorrow War. Having said that, you could definitely do better than the Tomorrow War. This is not me like singing the movie's praises and acting like it's flawless, because it most definitely is not. A lot of people are gonna have an issue with the pacing of this movie, like just how they pace and spread everything out. A lot of people are gonna feel like, especially in the first 40 minutes or so, that this movie's boring as hell. Why is that? It's because this movie does take its time to like let you get to know some of these characters before they get drafted into this big future war. You get to know Chris Pratt. You get to spend time with him and his family. You get to know a little bit about Chris Pratt's background, and then there are other characters that get introduced and you get to know a little bit about them before you get going. I can definitely say that at a certain point, there's a lot of time-wasting dialogue and a lot of scenes that feel like maybe you're stretching this out a little bit more than necessary. Like, maybe you could just get to the point of why most of the people are gonna tune into this movie. When I sit here and I say that this movie definitely could be like 15 to 20 minutes shorter and I don't think the quality would be affected, mostly I'm talking about the pacing. Sometimes it builds certain characters up to make them feel important, and then like an hour goes by and you like forget these people are even in the movie. Very jarring the way that this movie treats its characters as they go back and forth between past and future. The only consistent character through line is with Chris Pratt's character and his family. Beyond that, and some unexplained mythology and some questions that the movie doesn't really seem that interested in answering, I'm sure that some of this is gonna frustrate people. But as far as a sci-fi action movie, as far as like just letting your hair down and enjoying a good time at the movie, or enjoying a good time at home, because most people are gonna be streaming this on Amazon Prime, I definitely feel like this is not a bad way to spend your time. That's just me personally. Tomorrow War was actually a solid sci-fi action movie, just above average. I'm gonna leave this one in the Daily Planet. Again, it's now streaming on Amazon Prime. Check it out if you want to. There's a bunch of movies coming out this weekend. You got The Forever Purge, you got No Sudden Move, which I think came out on HBO Max. You got Black Widow next week. Tell me what movie you're most looking forward to over this summer. Please like and subscribe to the Superfan Show, and if you like what you see, tell me how you feel, and stay tuned to hear more from the Man of Steel. Peace.